Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Okay, I'm getting Amanda added to the video right now so that she can say hi too. Oh my goodness, so many people. Oh, hi.
Hello. All right. Hello. Oh, hang on. Oh, just trying to get into the tripod here. So hello to not just Jackie, but hello to everyone who's joining us for this very first doodling lesson. Jackie, where's your face?
Oh, do you want it?
Show us your beautiful
You
face.
want my
Of
face?
course we want it.
My whole face? Okay. There's my window. Everyone gets my view. Hello, hello.
That's very nice.
Hello.
Nice natural light.
Hi.
Oh, I love the color you chose to wear. Anyone else here today wearing green? But I would like to just do a really quick introduction before we dive in. First of all, my name is Amanda Arneill, and thank you so much for joining Jackie and I in today's doodling lesson. It's the first of 3, so today we're sort of going to be working on some basic skills. Not super basic, like, oh, you should know this already, but the foundational skills for the other 2 lessons as well. So if you can't make it through the whole thing, remember that we will send you a replay afterwards. And please finish watching and do your practice because it definitely will pay off. So this is Jackie, and Jackie has a name that gets mispronounced often, doesn't it?
It does. It does. So
what do you usually get?
JC is the most common. I get JC, I get Lacey a lot because I think people flip the J and the L, but JC is the most common. But my initials are JC, so it works, I guess. Jackie Girl.
So it's acceptable?
Yes, it works.
And then the last name
Corral.
is like where you would keep the cattle, not where the fish live.
Yes, it's not Coral. Corral.
No. All right. And Jackie, how long have you been doing your doodling and your art?
Can we say like toddlerhood?
We can.
We can't. For doodles, I mean, I was the kid in elementary school with like the spiral notebooks and all the doodles all up and down the different margins. And that got more serious in high school as I kind of went into more advanced art classes and things. And then I became, after college, I did not study art in college, but I became a self-taught graphic designer, at which point I kind of got burnt out and bored with graphic design and rediscovered my love for art through hand lettering. And then hand lettering kind of brought me all the way back around to illustration, and that's now turned into illustrating books and other more detailed campaigns for things and stuff. So it's been wild.
Because you've done like packaging design, you've done 2 books now. You're working on 2 more, is it?
I have almost finished 3 books, and I'm about to start number 4.
That's amazing. And I would just like to say to everyone that I love this sort of story because it shows us that we can do it too, because Jackie didn't spend like 27 years in art school.
Nope.
She's completely self-taught, and she has like legitimate books out. Not even self-published, though those are great too, but it's perfect. So everyone,
you ready?
Do you have your pencil?
I've got mine.
Do you have your paper and your eraser? Because it is time to get rid of this and only see what Jackie's going to be doing. You also will want to have a few of those other items as inspiration for your own doodles, because while it's great for Jackie to teach us the basics, we don't just want to be creating things that look exactly like hers. We want to be creating the items that look like those that we have. And that's part of how you make your style your own as well. So I will shush. If you have questions as we're going along, and if I have questions, you can type them in there and I'll make sure that Jackie is asked them so that we can all glean everything possible.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda. Okay, so yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And this is going to be our most basic lesson so far, our most basic lesson in this series with these free lessons that we're doing. And we thought it would be fun to look at some household objects. So let me just make sure you're actually seeing what I have. Here we go. Stand up so you can see what I have here. So I've got a couple of different mugs that I want to show you. See a couple of different styles. My dad picked up this mug for me. How sweet was that? And then I've got this more kind of ornate one that we're going to look at. Keep an eye on the time too. And then I have a couple of different glasses that I want to show you. So I've got one that's really tall here and slender, and another one that's got a bit more detail. So that flat, so you're not just seeing my hand. And I've got some glasses clinking, accoutrement, some little things that we'll look at together, how to draw, because next week we're going to talk about composition. So I want to start showing you some little themed elements here. So what goes with a mug, tea, coffee. And then finally, just to really throw a ringer and make everyone's brains hurt, I'm going to show you how to draw a pair of scissors. Because they're so hard to draw, and I will give you a sneak peek at my sketches that I actually did to try to learn how to draw this for you, because I didn't know how. So I'm going to break it down very real for you. So you would think I would start with the glasses because they're simpler, but I'm actually going to start with a mug, because the glass, I find the challenge is that you can see right through it. So it's actually hard to capture dimension and shapes and things. So we're going to come back to the more seemingly simpler item after we look at this mug. So I want to show you, talk a little bit about depth perception, essentially, and angles. And Amanda said it to me in a way I loved. She's like a model on a runway or is taking photos, is constantly like turning and catching her best look. If you guys could see me, I'm actually popping my hips right now. It's really cute. So depending on the way that you look at this item, it's going to change the shapes that you see. So the goal here is we want to see basic shapes in the items. So ignore the adorable letters for now. So if this is laying flat like this, and if I put my pencil right at the top here, it's a straight line. What your eye looking at that might assume you're seeing a curve because you know that it's round, right? You know it's round, but for the sake of drawing it, we're actually going to capture the fact that it's completely straight on each side. Okay? So what has 4 straight sides, 2 longer than the others? It's a rectangle. And I'm not gonna like make your brains hurt and make you answer silly questions here, but I want to make sure you can see what I'm doing. So essentially, to really just capture the essence of a mug, and that's all we're trying to do here, is we're trying to capture its essence. You literally start with a basic rectangle. Can everybody see that? Is it big enough? Yeah. Ooh, look at me zooming.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Oh.
I'm going to zoom.
Technology.
All right. So at this point, you might say, all right, how am I going to add anything that makes it look like more than a rectangle here? And that's obviously in the handle. And this is a little bit of an ornate handle because we've got, hello, massive finger, big like curves happening and things like that. But again, I just want to capture the essence of this mug. So what I'm seeing is not a C. It's not even a half circle. It's actually like a heart cut in half. If you can imagine this mirrored on the other side, I'm actually seeing half of a heart here, just on this particular mug. And it's starting just from the top and ending just from the bottom. So I'm going to draw a really simple line and curve it around like this, as though there was a heart on the other side. Now, I over-exaggerated the top of the line here. The top of the handle should have met up there, but again, this is doodling. This is illustrative doodling, so we're trying to capture the essence of things. We're not attempting to be photorealistic. So I'm not going to be going in and adding any kind of shading, cross-hatching, shadows, anything like that, because we really just want to enjoy capturing the things that are around us. So now I'm going to add in the inner, and watch, I'm going to start a little bit sketchy so that I can try to mirror that shape on the inside. And now I'm
And I
seeing kind of
notice
a big ear.
you're also using really light lines when
Yes.
you're doing your sketch.
Totally. So I'm using these light lines, and eventually, as you get more practiced at this, you get what's called line confidence. And that's just the confidence to, rather than like sketch a straight line, just boldly put down a line. And that comes from literally muscle memory. That's the only place you're going to get that from. But even for me, and I'll show you my scissors sketches later. I need to move this because I'm awkwardly positioned. I'm just going to sketch around, and now I can go in and I can add just some round details underneath the top of the handle and underneath the bottom of the handle to give it a bit more interest here. Does this little curly Q. All right, this is our mug. And I think at this point, I am gonna go in and I'm just gonna clean up some of the proportions because my handle turned out large considering the size of the mug itself. This is a pretty exaggerated mug. She's hardy. This would my mom would call this a tea mug. Like you can have a cuppa with this mug. It's not a dainty little mug. So I'm going to go in and lightly erase my top and bottom lines, and I just want to exaggerate the height a little bit. And again, we're starting really basic because I just want you to see some of these shapes and things.
So when you do your drawing, you're usually sort of not tearing apart physically, but trying to look at your object and see the shapes that you can then piece back together in order to create something that shows its essence.
Exactly. So imagine icons that you see on your phone, like app icons, or emojis. Those are really simplified versions of everyday objects because you need people to be able to recognize them, and they're breaking them down by shapes. That's how icon designers work. If you ever see a gridded out icon design, it's like circles and arches and loops and things like that. So to show you the shapes, what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to turn this upright. Because now we've got the exact same object that we're going to represent on the page with completely different shapes. So this is going to be a bird's eye view of a cup of coffee, which you could totally draw. So now, obviously, there's no more rectangle. We've got one simple circle, and the light isn't quite capturing it, but there's one smaller circle right on the inside, which is showing you how it's going. We're going down into the cup, and then one really rectangle coming out from the side that's got a slight curve at the top. That's all we're doing. We're just breaking down the shapes themselves. So let me zoom back in here. So I'm going to start really sketchy, like we said, because circles are hard. And that's the real truth. It's hard to draw a circle. It's hard to draw it well. If you want to grab a guide of some kind, a bottle cap or an actual pencil guide, that's not cheating. That's a tool. That's a resource. I say grab it and enjoy whatever resources you've got at your fingertips. So I sketched in that circle, and now I'm going to just darken up a little bit. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the inside of the handle here, where I sketched in that outline. I'm going to do it right on the inside of this circle so that we can see kind of where the walls, I suppose, of the mug meet the bottom. I'm not a potter. I don't know pottery terms. And I'm just.
So how do we know how far in to put that second circle?
That's a really good question. Let's decide that together because I don't know.
Well, you do because you started drawing it out towards the side.
Let me decide how we did that. So we started from the center, and the assumption here is I wish I had better light here to show you guys, but if I reach straight down in here, there's just a very thin wall all the way around the mug itself, right? If it was a thick mug, that's a good way to think of it. If the mug had a thick wall, like it was one of those heavy duty unfinished ceramic mugs that Amanda hates because they feel gross. If it was one of those, you would have a smaller circle on the inside to represent just the thicker wall in the mug itself. So because this is a pretty thin-walled mug, you really want it really small right inside. And then we're going to add the top of the handle here, which we said was a small rectangle with a curve on the end. And I'll do that off to the side. And it comes out about, keep zooming on you guys, about, if I even just hold my hand here, the size of that is about half the size of the circle. right? Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So if you go out much farther than that, I think you're going to get something wonky.
It'll start to look like a different object.
Yeah, that it will. A pot or something. Okay.
Now, if your center circle isn't completely perfect,
Yeah,
that's still okay, right?
of course. I think that's where you're going to get whimsy in your drawings. And you're also going to learn style, right? I have a habit for precision. That's just something I enjoy in the way that I draw. And so I tend to take time to center things and align things. But I know a lot of people enjoy a sketchier, less like perfect quote. I mean, you can't be perfect, you're drawing, but something that's more of a representation even than, or an interpretation than a representation. Does that make sense? Okay, so I want to show you that one more thing with this guy, and it's just looking at it at an angle. Okay, so everybody bear with me because I promise we'll move on to another mug after this, but this is my true nerding happening right now. So remember we looked at it this way and we got a rectangle, looked at it this way, we got a circle, and now I want to show you how we combine those shapes. And this is often, I find, how we see mugs drawn in general, because this is where you get depth. This is where you know that it's a nice big mug. This is where you can represent fullness of any kind. You can put a liquid in this mug. You can't put a liquid in this mug. I mean, you could, but you wouldn't know it, right, from the drawing itself. Here, you would have to assume it's either empty or full. Here, I can actually draw a line that's going to show us how full or empty the mug is, and I love that. So what I want you to see now, and if this is hard because what you're seeing is 3D, right? All I see is a massive mug, and where do I start? A trick that you can do is you can cover one of your eyes when you look at the object itself, because that forces your depth perception out. Like, it doesn't process in your brain as well. It's not frozen. I'm just moving really slowly. I'm sorry. Or is it frozen?
No, it looks like we're okay.
Okay. Stop me if you're losing anything here. So what you can do is you can close one of your eyes, and that's going to flatten the objects for you, and you're going to be able to see the shapes better than the overall kind of piece. Because your brain looks at this and it doesn't say rectangle plus ellipse plus arch. It says mug, right? So if you look at here, what we've got is not a perfect circle, even though here we had a perfect circle. It's at an angle. So we actually have in a flat ellipse coming down into a rectangle with a curve on the bottom that's going to match the angle of the curve that we have at the top. And I'm going to show you what happens if you don't match that angle once we start drawing. Okay, so
those were lots of different
shapes.
Terms.
Yes. So let me start with
walk us through it step by step. First, we draw
an ellipse. So first, an ellipse is a wonky circle.
A smush circle, yeah.
Squish circle. Somebody sat on it. And let me hold this at the correct angle so that you can actually see what I'm working with here. Okay.
And one little tip that I really like to do when I'm drawing something is that I either look at it with one eye closed, because then it takes away your depth perception, or take a quick picture of it.
Oh, yes.
Because that way you don't have to, oh, I moved the mug and now I have the wrong angle. So that's just a little trick for when you're trying to draw things.
That's fantastic. Okay, now to represent this rectangle, right, that we had before over here, we're just going to draw two straight lines coming down, right? And proportions here, you're going to eyeball, but I know that this mug is taller than it is wide. So these lines are going to be longer than it is wide. Bring these down a little bit more. Now, if I was to finish this off at the bottom with a straight line, let's just do that really light here. Like, this is, my brain now can't compute what this is, which is fascinating to me. I don't know what this is, but the moment I take that guy out, and remember this curve that we have at the top here, the bottom of the ellipse, I'm going to match that here. Another thing you can do is you can draw two ellipses. If you guys remember drawing cylinders in geometry class, but I find that if you just match that, now I'm looking at a can, right? Exactly. Yes, exactly, Amanda. So you can go ahead and sketch in the two of the exact same size ellipses, whichever you're comfortable with. And now it gets, I think the trickiest part at this point is representing this handle on an angle, right? So here it was really easy because we were looking straight on, so it was flat. Now I want to capture the depth in the angle here. And I'm just going to walk you through how I would do it, essentially. I'm trying to keep it in this shot so that you can still see the mug itself. Okay. So I'm going to start with the same shape, essentially. This is not working. There we go. I'm going to start with this.
One more hand.
I literally need another hand. I need like an assistant over here. So what do we want to call this? A half heart or like an old man's ear?
Oh, jeepers.
Maybe. It's kind of what it looks like. So now I want to represent the fact that there's a top and an inside. So in order to do that, I'm just going to show you the top of the mug handle extending out. And then if I come all the way around, we're going to replicate our drawing over here. So rather than do that, I'm going to cut it off like we did here. Okay. Draw that in a little bit better for you to see. And now to show the continuation of that depth, I'm going to come inside that line. Ooh, it lets me zoom even more. That's great. And now follow the curve from the inside. So now I've got the top and the inside of the mug handle itself. I'm going to clean it up because that's sketchy. So again, we have top. Yeah, I get it, sketchy. The outside and then the inside. And now you've got some amount of depth, and I can go in and I can add the curly Q that was at the bottom and the top. Okay.
So, but the other thing when you're drawing your line is that you want to keep the width of it the same on the top and the bottom, even when it tucks underneath.
Yes, exactly.
Because the mug handle is the same width all the way down.
Right, and that's what it's doing. It's tucking underneath. I love how you said that. It's tucking in and it's curving around, and we're kind of flattening that for the eye here and trying to represent that this guy's being drawn up and at an angle. And now what you can do is you can fill the mug with something. And in order to do that, rather than drawing straight across, again, that would confuse all of our perception. I'm going to say this is a more than half fill mug. It's an optimistic mug. I'm going to come down just a little ways from the top ellipse and just sketch in an additional line here.
Following that elliptical shape.
Yes, exactly. Following it. And then for some whimsy, to turn this into more of an illustrative doodle, I might draw some little heat squiggles on the top. Now we have a nice hot cuppa. Mom, I know my mom's watching and I love her, so I'm going to keep throwing out tea references.
She's British, isn't she?
She's very British. I didn't get the accent. Sorry, everyone. Okay, so 11:24. I'm going to blast through one more mug, and then I want to show you two glasses. Everybody good? Questions on here?
Sounds great.
Yes, I am. See, she's talking. Yes, she is. Samantha. Hi, Mom. Okay, so this is the other mug I want to show you, and the reason is because we've got fluting happening, right? So a flare at the top, and then it's rounding on the bottom. So we don't have a perfect rectangle at this point, right? So this one.
So that's when you just throw the mug at the wall, and then you don't have to worry about that?
Please don't throw my mugs. I love this mug.
Okay.
This is one of my very favorite mugs. No, brilliant. So this is when I do want to draw this one flat just like this so that we can see the shapes. And then I'll show you some drawings I already did of it at an angle. Cool. All right, so let's just walk through the shapes real quick. Proportionally, I've now got a foot at the bottom of this mug. My last mug doesn't have a foot, so there's just a little baby that it's standing on here. The handle is dainty, right? We've got a toddler's ear, if you will, over on the side here.
Much cuter.
Much cuter than, but I still like that mug. It's still a great old man ear.
There's no mug judgment happening.
No mug judgment. I love it. And then you can see I'm going to be able to represent the top of this with a straight line, right, with our pencil test. Whoops, hello. But that does not work on the sides. And that's how you can see that, right? It's curving from the bottom, from the top to the bottom. It's curving down and away from the pencil. Okay, so hopefully it's kind of like a tulip shape, I would say. All right, let's draw her. So I would start with the easiest lines, sketching in proportion. So I know that I've got a straight line along the top. And I'm actually going to rough in a rectangle that we're going to go out we're going to go back in and add those curvy lines too, because this is how we're going to capture proportion. And this is where we're going to change any mistakes, right? When we say something looks off, this is the stage we're going to want to do that. So if the foot or the handle or something like that, this is like blocking it out essentially. So the foot is,
and sorry, roughing in is just drawing very lightly sort of your guideline shape.
exactly, drawing it really lightly and being rough, right? And I find that it's less precious at this stage, right? It's harder to come in here and say like, oh, I just jacked up the size of that whole handle. I already went into this detailing and I drew so hard at this point, it would be much harder to erase. So here I'm drawing light, I'm not making it precious. This is just to represent the proportions of the object essentially. So there was a small rectangle right at the bottom here that I'm gonna rough in centered because it sits on a little foot. And then we're gonna add this little toddler ear right in the center of the mug. And again, I like to use my fingers as guides so I can see when I do this that the top of it is closer, the top of the handle is closer to the top of the mug than it is the bottom. So I know it's not perfectly centered. That would be here. All right, so I'm gonna add that. And it's again another curve, an ear. And then the interior, it doesn't actually follow exactly to the side because we've got another shape here, right? There's like a teardrop almost that's happening right inside the handle itself. So I'm gonna rough in the teardrop right here, really sketchy. Nothing's precious at this point. Okay, those proportions look pretty good. I'm happy with them. So this is the point where we want to start adding in the curves, right? Because mama's got hips. So curves.
How would we know if the proportions are off?
I mean, outside,
like I noticed you're moving your fingers a lot, and really looking at the scale on the top and the bottom, how much space is there. And then when you are changing that to your page, do you ever put like little marks as to where the top would be and the bottom?
Yeah, no, that's a great idea because yes, Amanda's really good at making me think out loud because I tend to do a lot of calculating in my brain I don't know that I'm doing. So thank you so much. So that is a brilliant trick that you can do by even just adding a small guide, splitting this in half. I find that half markers are helpful because you can eyeball a half marker pretty well, right? Without actually drawing on my lovely mug. I don't want a Sharpie on here or anything, but now that we've half marked it, you can see that where the bottom of the handle is going to come, right? And we captured it pretty good here by looking at that. But the guides are a really good idea. So what we can do now is we can use, I'm going to take some of those out. We'll add in guides to capture the curves. And I think that's a great idea. So this begins to curve at the bottom, right where it drops off from the handle, right? So we've essentially got a rounded corner here, and it's just matched on the other side, but it doesn't stay round, right? If it stayed round, it would come all the way to the top. It's round and then it goes straight, right? So I don't want to come back around on the curve itself. So I'm going to start from the bottom of the handle. Let me zoom in a little here. And rough the curve on that side. And then I'll draw a dotted line, just a little guide straight across to make sure that I end the curve correctly on the other side in the right place. Okay. Yeah, that looks, see, it's already starting to take on so much more character and shape. Okay, and then the last thing we want to capture is actually flutes out at the top, whereas it flutes in at the bottom, it flutes out at the top on either side. So maintaining that straight line, I'll create a little mark, like Amanda said, just, I mean, barely outside of the original rough rectangle so that it's even on both sides. And I'm going to start from that mark and just curve right down into the straight line. And I'll curve down into the straight line going into my handle here. So she's fluted.
That's a beautiful mug.
Look at that mug.
I will not throw that against your wall.
I've got 4 more, it's fine. Someone already broke one. It's my set. All right, I'm just gonna go around and clean it up real quick.
So after the rough sketch, when you just get the shape that you like, that's when you go in and hard draw those lines.
Exactly. Exactly. Because I find that once I hard draw it, I can actually come back now. I like to come back at this point and start to erase some things out because my hard lines aren't going anywhere. So this is when I can start to take some of these guides out.
And that's also why you don't want to draw hard lines right at the beginning.
100%.
Because they're not going anywhere.
Nope. Not going anywhere. Okay, and then I'm going to finish off the bottom by, I mean, it really is a straight line again here. My brain wanted right now to put in a curve at the bottom of this for you guys, and I'm so glad I didn't. Because that foot is flat because it needs to be able to rest on a surface, right? Okay, all right, it's pretty good. It's, you know.
It's adorable.
It's pretty good. So let me show you real quick. Hello. Did I draw another one? No, I drew that one flat. No, I replicated everything I already drew. All right, cool, Jackie. Good job. Way to bed. Cool, cool, cool. All right, let's look at glasses real quick. In the next 5 minutes, we'll look at glasses, and then I want to show you scissors because scissors are now my least favorite thing to draw. Just kidding. They're great.
Well, that makes us really excited about it.
No, it's good. It's a good challenge. So this is so tricky. The reason I think glasses are hard is because they're see-through, right? Like you really have to work to see these shapes, right? So there's an ellipse here, but I have to forget like everything that's behind it. So a trick that you can absolutely use is to just grab something plain, like a black sheet of paper, to try to erase some of the things in the background, right? Even get your hands out of the way.
Yeah, mind blown.
Mine.
That's so much better.
Isn't that easier? It's even
Yes.
easier. I should have done that with this. Look at that, Jacqueline.
Now get that off. Put that glass back. That was amazing.
So good. There are certain pencil types that I recommend. This is my favorite pencil. This is a Statler Mars lead pointer, and the sound of it makes Amanda happy when it sharpens. But I think any pencil that draws is a good pencil. I'm very indiscriminate with pencils. Okay. Oh, eyeglasses. Nope. Drinking glasses. That's amazing. All right. So we've got the ellipse at the top here, and I want to draw this one the opposite of the way that we drew the mug. So I want to draw it from looking up from the bottom because it's see-through. So you can actually create, like Amanda showed you the guides doing double ellipses here. You can do that and keep them with the glass. So it's actually kind of fun doing that here. So the first things I want to look at before I just dive into drawing it for you are the matching ellipses. But the top of this is larger than the bottom. So the ellipses at the bottom are going to be smaller than the one that's at the top. So I've got one at the top, another one at the base of where the liquid rests in the glass, and then another at the foot of the glass itself. So there's actually 3 ellipses that we're looking at here. And then it's just going to be simple lines connecting them all. It'll look like a tube. Okay. So I'll come over to the side here. Yep, you can still see it. Fantastic. So I'll start with my largest ellipse at the top. And we're going to remember that it's not going to go straight down, right? Because this is not like a perfectly straight glass. It's slightly fluted. Yeah, it's fluted again. That's the best word for it. And then looking at proportion again, I'm even going to look at my pencil here. Thank you, Amanda. I'll look at my pencil here. No, I love the guide that you put.
You taught me that straight line trick.
I know. I need to remember that one. Right. So if you draw a straight line down the page, you'll be able to keep everything centered. That's what you're talking about, right?
Correct, yes.
Because
otherwise my glass is going to be like
Alice in Wonderland's glass?
Yeah.
That's all right. Okay, so now we're going to add 2 more ellipses. We're going to do a smaller one and then the smallest one at the bottom. And proportionally, we're just going to dive way down and keep these 2 closer and much farther from the one at the top. All right, so a little bit smaller. And I'm actually going to add a guide, a super tiny dot guide on either side here because I want to make sure that these ellipses end up being smaller than the top one.
Fair enough.
So I want to live inside of that guide, and then I'm going to add 1 more right at the bottom. And this is where things get interesting because now we're going to force perspective. Depending on which way you draw the lines, it's going to appear like it's sitting up or laying back. So in order to do that, again, this is fluted out. It's not a dead straight line that's coming down. So I'm going to just draw from the top a curved line out aside of that dotted guide and then come back in. So why don't I add a little cross guide here so I know where to come back on the other side. I think symmetry is often like a hang up for people, things being perfectly symmetrical, because in real life they are, but they're not when we draw them. And I think that's okay. And it's kind of fun. All right, so
and I've noticed that a lot of artists use that as part of their charm too.
Lack asymmetry?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like it's part of a stylistic choice. So I guess if you're going to be asymmetrical, just like own it.
Own that asymmetry. That's so true. And I have a lot of very symmetrical drawings that I enjoy, but those are almost all done digitally. Like those are iPad fakes, right? So like you can't be perfectly symmetrical in real life, and I think that's totally acceptable. Okay, she's got a little bit more fluting than in real life. That's all right. I'm just going to slim her down a little bit. Start to erase out some of these roughs. I mean, and that's really the glass. I mean, because it's see-through, you get to keep all of these ellipses in here because the glass itself is see-through. I mean, the other, if you wanted to come in and add detail, there's a small like indentation, right? A loop where it's coming down at the bottom that I can go in and I can add here. But in reality, like that's the whole glass. Glasses are like both challenging and easy to draw because they're so simple. And I think the simplest things are often the hardest things to draw. So what I want to show you, I'm not going to walk through the drawing of it, but I want to just show you real quick this glass. I have a drawing that I'll walk you through, but this glass presented some interesting challenges because it's comprised of a lot more shapes, right? So we start with a simple square. This is about square, maybe slightly rectangular, and then it tapers in and it tapers again and creates these little arch shapes on the inside. And for this drawing, you'll see I didn't even try to match the arch in the back because it would be so busy, you'd lose the glass itself. So there's decisions that you have to make while you're drawing too, right? Where you say, well, in reality, you can see a tiny mirror image of what's happening back here, but you can't represent that in pencil drawing in the style that we're doing here because this is not photorealistic drawing, right?
And also in reality, that's not what your eye actually focuses on when you look at the glass either. It's just sort of like a detail that your eye chooses to throw away because you see a glass.
100%. Absolutely. So I drew that glass right here. Ooh, where'd you go, Mr. Glass? This is classy, guys. Don't worry about it. There it is. There's Mr. Glass. And you can see that I left some roughs in because I wanted you to see kind of how I worked it out. But with this glass, I mean, once it gets to that line style, it's so simple because it's really just looking at shapes and breaking down shapes and catching their proportions, right? The top didn't quite come halfway down the glass. It came about a third of the way down the glass. It had a foot on the bottom. I could still really easily see the base of the glass because it wasn't all of this crazy detail. So I wanted to capture that because otherwise I think it would have looked flat and confusing while also capturing the top of it here. And then it was just a matter of keeping lines straightish. Yeah.
And I would say that using, like you just mentioned, proportion, so putting in those little, even if it's just a tiny little mark to give you a guideline on either side, that'll help keep it more, somewhat more symmetrical. And then also drawing that line down the middle so that you have a sense of purpose for your glass to keep it all together. It's just all about keeping it together.
Right, because proportion and symmetry are not necessarily the same thing, right? Like you can fake something without being symmetrical and it can be whimsical without, as long as it's proportional, right? The second it loses proportion, it's unbelievable.
I would like to think of it as sort of like our bodies. We all know our hands aren't the exact same size, our feet aren't the exact same size. We'll leave it there as things that aren't the exact same size. But when you put us together, we're a person. We have a midline and there's a general sense of symmetry. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for flawed symmetry.
Oh, I love that.
Flawed? I don't like the word flawed. I gotta think of something better than that.
Intentional asymmetry.
Oh, there you go. I bet that's what God was thinking when he made me, and one of my eyes is this big and the other one's that small.
I don't want to talk about the things that are missized on my body. That's for a different kind of podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Let's look at scissors
one
real quick
thing,
because we have to go, right?
sorry.
No.
Yeah, but one thing that I notice about your collection of mugs and cups that you have on that other page
Yes, ma'am.
is that using a grouping of items that are all related makes all of them so easy to identify. And throwing in your little tea bags and coffee beans and all of that, again, you know what they are. Whereas if we only had this one, we would probably interpret it as a mug, but then making it as part of a collection, it's much easier for your brain to interpret it as a mug. And that's why next week's going to be so exciting.
I know. I'm so excited. We're going to dive more into themed composition next week, which is why I threw in these teasers of small coffee beans and tea bags tying this all together here, and random pens and pencils, because that's what I was thinking about last night when I was drawing this. So what does my pencil look like? Oh, you're quite lovely to draw, Mr. Pencil.
Oh, very good.
Okay, last thing we're going to do is these scissors, and then we'll save coffee beans for next week. They're really cute. You guys should just look at coffee beans. They're actually adorable. Okay, let me grab my paper again because I want you to really see. Do we like that on black paper?
Yeah,
pretty good.
It's good.
Okay, so this, I'm going to look at it this way because this is how I figured out how to draw it. The challenge for me with scissors is they don't look how I think they look in my head. Okay?
Like horses.
Like, exactly. That, yes, thank you. Oh, don't get me started on horses. Horses are so hard to draw. Okay, so in reality, these aren't circles. These aren't squares or rectangles, and this isn't a straight line, like a perfectly straight line, because they're not blunt, right? So what I had to do is I had to really look at this yesterday, and I had to say, what shapes actually comprise this thing? And what I found were two asymmetrical but mirrored teardrops right in the middle, like eyeballs. This reminds me of a stork, like a stork's face, right? Like you've got his eyes, and then you come down to the top of his beak, and then you come all the way out. And now we're going to open it, and you're never going to look at scissors the same way again. Hello. That was fun. Right. So it's starting kind of large, but it's also dainty. So I think proportion was a tricky thing here too, right? Because you want, if one part of this was chunky and the other part was dainty, they wouldn't work. And your mind would know, your imagination would know, like those scissors don't actually work, right? So we want them to look like they would work. So if I'm using child scissors, I should have grabbed some of my daughter's scissors. Child scissors are little and dainty and chunky, right? But you know they work because they're proportionally chunky. These are long and useful, you know, for an adult's hands. So I'm going to show you some of the drawings because I think it's fun to see like where I started. Here's my to-do list. Anybody? There you go. Have fun. So I started just roughing out the shape, right? I said, what does this look like? I see shapes, and I realized I was making mistakes here, right? So I wasn't leaving a space in the center even when it was open. So I learned that in the process of roughing it out. You can see my mugs. And then I started to reincorporate the space and found that I still didn't have enough space in different places. And then I landed with this guy here. And I want to tell you, the reason I figured this out is because I was struggling to draw it from this angle. And then I flipped it. And for whatever reason, my brain saw it better. Isn't that interesting? Like even turning something upside down, like an apple upside down, doesn't matter. By the time you have your picture, you just turn your picture around and you have a right side up apple, right? So once I turned them around, something just clicked for me and I could see the proportion. This, I really struggled. And this is the way you use scissors. So you'd think this made sense, but this is how my mind processed it for the sake of the drawing. So let me walk you through real quick the actual shapes themselves. And I cannot wait to see everyone's pictures of this because there's so many different shapes of scissors. And please include the reference for us, like show your scissors. See, those are so cute. I want to. Yeah.
Aren't these beautiful?
Those are beautiful.
I use them for my bangs. I haven't used them yet. You can tell because.
Oh I thought you were about to just cut your bangs right now.
I would.
There it is.
Yeah.
See, we're crossing genres here with this video. I love it. Okay, so I'm going to start by roughing out the overall shape, right? The overall shape is kind of it's a triangle, right? Because we're starting flat here and coming out to the end. Like that's the general shape of scissors is a triangle. So I'm going to start with, and he's a skinny triangle. And geometry was a long time ago, so someone else can tell me what kind of triangle this is. But we're going to call him skinny. I don't know why the mugs were ladies and the scissors are a man, but that is what it is. I'm sure there's some Freudian analysis we could do on that. Okay, super sketchy triangle because I just want to know that I live within this general space. This shape is going to be like home base, right? The second I start to move outside of it, we're going to, we know we've kind of lost our way a little bit. And now I'm going to rough in those shapes that we already saw. So I'm going to rough in kind of my little ellipses here, and we'll fix them later, but I know they're not circles. So ellipse, and I know it's going to come down at the bottom. Hey, he's smiling at me. Adorable. Okay, isosceles. Thank you, Sarah. See, I knew somebody would know. Y'all are smart.
And so again, we're just using our pencil very lightly, right?
Super light. And then I'm just going to create one straight line down the center, and we're going to build the blades up from this. Okay, so now we know we're centered here. All right.
And if yours looks nothing like a scissor right now,
neither does mine.
You're in good company.
I've got like ovaries
no
and something else happening, so this is totally fine. No big deal. All right, so at this point, I'm going to go in and fix some of my outlines. So here, and I mean, honestly, guys, if you're really struggling and you can do this with the object, and you're like, where are these curves coming from? I mean, that reference itself is so helpful, right? And I don't recommend always tracing it, but this is a great way just to learn the general shape of things, right? Because now I can tell that it actually, and also I'm drawing this at a different scale, so I have to redraw it here. I can't like just trace it again, but I can tell that, oh, this comes up and around and then flutes out, just like it did with our mug. Down here, it's gonna flute out to the center. So I'm gonna rough that in to the bottom of the handle. Actually, I wanna show you guys something. I was about to continue drawing here, and it was gonna force my handles to touch, but they don't touch in real life, right? So I got my triangle wrong, and I need to adjust I need to just spread my ellipses out here. All right, and I'm going to try again. Starting from the outside. Now we're drawing the outside of the handle itself. Just coming down and around this ellipse. Okay. And now I've got a decision to make because you can see that this is the front panel, right? This is the front panel blade. So there's a line coming across the front here. So I get to actually mimic that line. And to do that, I'm going to add in there is literally a circle here, right? Like on these scissors. So I'm going to draw that circle in right in the center and use that as my guide because I can see that these lines are coming around and hugging the circle, right? So it's just giving yourself lots of reference opportunities because I know that it's coming straight here and then it's going to go around the circle. We're getting closer. It's starting to sort of take shape. We're giving birth to scissors now. Wow, God, let's never say that again.
No.
Okay.
That sounds terrible.
Okay, so I'm going to create a dotted reference guide right under these ellipses here for myself. And again, guys, this is really sketchy because this is also me figuring this out, right? As I go, I've drawn these before, but I'm learning the proportions as I go. And sometimes that means adding guidelines in as I go, right? Because I'm saying, you know what, I want to make sure that these curves hit in the same place. And in order to do that, I need to give myself a little bit of a guide. So I'm going to do the same thing here, where I come around the outside of it, and I know that it's going to come down and straight. And this time it's going to run right into my first circle line, right? Because it's hugging behind. It's like the blade that goes in the back. And I'm going to come around the front, inside. And right at my guideline there that I gave myself is where I'm going to curve in and back out. Right? I'm just giving myself lots of guides to work around these different shapes.
And so us giving the guides, it's not cheating.
No.
It's a strategy.
I have to think that like Rembrandt used guides. I really, Van Gogh, like these guys maybe eventually didn't need them, but everyone started with guides. And don't tell me I'm wrong. Just let me believe that, please. Okay, and now I'm going to start down my center line that's here of my blades. And these are interesting because they're just such clean lines, right? You can really mimic the fact that there's one line coming down the right side, and that's the front blade. So that's coming up in the front, and then a second one on the right. That's showing you the back blade, and that's going to give a lot of dimension, right? So I'm going to start on the right side to give the front blade and come down from our outer circle here. And I'm just building shapes, right? So this is another triangle, effectively. Another really skinny isosceles triangle. Okay. And then what I'm noticing is that the blade itself, right, it continues beyond the center line here. I gave myself the center line as a guide, but it actually covers this full front. So I'm going to come up from the bottom and just kind of rough it in, right? Bring it out. And so that I don't confuse myself, I will erase that center line. These are starting to look like scissors, guys. It's working. Okay, I've got the front blade, and now, I mean, it makes this sort of perfect shape, right? And I cut in here. I didn't tell you that, but when I cut in on the front so that I could capture the back line here. And I apologize that I'm going so fast. I promise we can all chat afterwards. But I want to let everybody go.
So with cutting in, you just mean that it changes angle a little bit there.
Exactly. So I was coming down straight, and then I literally took a cut, right? Like if you were to cut someone in line, you cut to the side. Jerk. I would never.
Of course not.
I'm way too afraid of people to cut in line. Okay, the blades are looking pretty good. So at this point, I got my front blade figured out, and then added my back blade by just adding a small line on the back side there. And guys, I'm not using a ruler. I don't have perfectly straight lines here. If that's your jam, grab a ruler. Enjoy it, right? Enjoy the satisfaction of a really straight line. You do you with these lines. I'm happy with them being a little bit wonky. Oops, not that wonky.
And here's one thing that I've noticed, because unfortunately I can see myself in the camera.
Oh, hi.
I try not to do that. And normally I don't have a camera facing my face while I'm drawing, but then I do something and I'm like, oh, it's not right. And I realize I'm going, ugh. And every time you do that to yourself, you're essentially saying it's not good enough. You're not doing it right. But also keep in mind, this is for me, it's the very first time that I'm drawing a pair of scissors more than just like two circles with two lines.
Right.
So it's our first time, and you can never expect anything to be perfect on the first time. So remember, give yourself a little bit of grace, and it's your first try. You can always do a few more.
Absolutely. You guys saw, come on. So many scissors that I was like, hello, look at these fun guys. That's like some bad cabaret or something happening there. Right? But it's fun. Like, I love that I can see that and I can go, but look where we got. Right? If I'd stopped there, I would have said, I just don't know how to draw scissors. This is too hard. Right. And I said, no, I actually set it down. I walked away and I came back to it, flipped the scissors over, found a new angle, and just was fresh. Right? So grace, perfect. I love that. I think we're so hard on ourselves, especially when we lose the love of drawing because we weren't good at some point. Like someone told us we weren't good enough, or we told ourselves that. Like, who cares? If you enjoy doing it, then it should be done out of joy, not for some other goal, Okay, so the inside of these, soapbox finished. Inside of these are egg-shaped, right? These are upside-down eggs. I mean, they're pointy eggs. I don't know that I want to eat those eggs, but that's the shape that I'm seeing here because it's not quite an ellipse. It's coming and tapering down at the bottom. And I'm trying my best to match it on either side because in fabrication, this is perfectly symmetrical. But again, I'm okay that they aren't totally perfect.
This is doodlecation.
There it is. Yeah. And now I'm just cleaning up these lines. And that's what I would really say is like the point behind what we're doing here. This illustrative doodling is meant to take some of that intensity out of drawing and illustration, but give purpose to the thing that we all love to do, which is doodle on the back of napkins and envelopes, right? We're giving it a purpose and a goal, and we're giving ourselves the tools to actually make things out of our doodles without having to become drawing masters. Because I'm not a drawing master. Heck no, I'm still learning. And I mean, please, this was hard. This was really difficult for me to figure out. And it's fine. It's okay. I see problems here and areas that I might go back in and fix. But for now, I'm pretty stoked.
You know, and you're illustrating books.
And like, come on. People, it's crazy. It's amazing what can happen. So, Amanda, I think we should leave the people with their scissors.
Leave the people? Okay. So can I give some homework?
Yes, please.
Because I know that next week we're going to be doing some composition, and that's putting a whole bunch of things that are related together into a piece to make it look nice, balance, all of that hierarchy, that sort of good stuff. But it means we're going to need to be able to draw a few different things, right?
Yes.
So I would say, don't just find one mug or one pair of scissors, but go around your house or go to a neighbor's house and be like, hey, can I borrow your scissors? That won't be weird. But find a few different pairs of scissors, find a few different mugs, find a few different glasses, or even things that you would associate with that, and look for the shapes and draw them out. I'm going to ask you to draw 3 objects related to these that are different than the ones that we've already done. And then I love Jackie's idea of even like taking a picture of your scissors with your drawing of the scissors that are the different ones and sharing that. And again, this is not a competition. This is just so that we can share our enjoyment of this process.
And Amanda, I would say Tracy just asked, how often should we practice if we want to really see progress? Should it be daily? And my answer would be exactly what Amanda just said. It should be as often as you are enjoying drawing, period, right? If your goal is to get really, really good and it's something you love to do, then get it, like get at it and enjoy it. If you get, like for me, it's like when I tell my daughter, when she starts to get really frustrated with a drawing or something she's doing, I ask her to walk away. I really do, because it's not fun anymore. If you're not enjoying,
that's so smart.
Like what's even the point, right? So finding themed objects. I find things like makeup tools, paintbrushes, like that kind of stuff are really simple objects that look that have a lot of basic shapes in them, but a lot of variety within kind of that theme. And just kitchen items I think are fun that could work with things like mugs. Like I want to see somebody draw a whisk. Right? Because of what, see, I saw that face. But it's, if you broke down the shapes, I think you could really do it. Whisks or pot holders. You know, what else do you see in your kitchen that might work with a mug? Maybe it's not a coffee theme, but we're looking at like stuff that's happening in the kitchen. Somebody go sit in your kitchen and draw your fridge. There's a big box, right?
That's a good idea. And now I would say, let's do it step by step. So you pick your object, you're going to go in and you're going to draw the outer shape to give yourself the outer borders. And that's just very lightly, those light guidelines. And then even look for your guidelines that can show you the different proportion. Drawing that middle line so that you can see where the top and the bottom go. Feel up your refrigerator so that you can actually get hands-on and measure things. And then go in and start to draw in your shapes before going in and drawing your dark lines. So you are doodling, but you're not expecting to just, boom, get it perfect the first time. Guidelines, rough lines, and then final lines.
Yep, simple shapes. Everything is made of simple shapes. Even complex shapes are made of simple shapes.
Perfect. So when should we have our homework up by?
What, by Monday before our next class?
Probably.
Next
that
class
would be
is
great.
Tuesday, so maybe by Monday, and then we're going to jump in and we're going to composition it up.
And I know that Jackie, you keep your sketchbook pages or sketch pages, even the ones that aren't necessarily perfect, and you use them as a reference in the future, right?
I do. So that's what I love about this is one of my larger sketchbooks that I like to work in. I like big pages. That's just a comfort thing for me. Really small sketchbooks are not my jam. Some people love them because you keep them in your pocket. But now I have a mug and scissor page that lives in my sketchbook. And I know how I draw mugs and scissors. And I don't have to recreate this again. So when, I'm sure it'll happen, when I go to draw, a coffee drawing or an office supplies drawing or something like that, I can actually just flip to this. So this is a loop turn. 1917, I think, sketchbook. I love it. She's large and in charge. She gets the job done. I also love moleskins. Moleskins are my other very favorite sketchbook that I continue to fill. This is a lined moleskin, which I like never use lines, but it was given to me at Letter West, so hence my notes and such. Those are my two favorites. And then lead hardness, I use a medium hardness lead. If it's too soft, I find I'm a really heavy drawer. Like you guys can see, I really always have been. Ask my mom, worst handwriting in elementary school because I was like, and just pummeled the paper for some reason. So if I use a really soft lead, it gets all over my hands. Like I drag everywhere. But if I go too hard, I find that it's too hard to erase even your guidelines. So I like something like right in the middle, a medium lead.
Perfect.
Or just a number 2 pencil. Like whatever works, guys. This is Monet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's whatever works, whatever you can find, and don't worry about those little details so much. I guess that's also like worrying about the symmetry too much. Just whatever you have on hand so that you can actually be practicing. All right, so next week we're going to be at the same time, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And are we going to need some more objects?
Yes. Yes, I need to think that far ahead. We're going to grab the objects that we're going to use in our drawing. So it's going to be a theme drawing. And I'm going to continue on the mugs and coffee theme because I love coffee and tea. That's me. But if you want to work on, you love your makeup, you love other kitchen supplies, office supplies, who doesn't love like a cute washi tape dispenser or something like that? Grab 3 or 4 items. And grab different scales. I want you to grab a couple things that are big and then some supporting items, right? So like these coffee beans are so teeny, but you can even see them on the page here. Like they're not even drawn in and it's already like a cuter drawing, right? Like just laying them down there. So grab some different scale items for your theme.
Great. And then our sketches, we're going to try to share 3 sketches each in our group here, and you can just post them to the wall.
Love it. I cannot wait to see what everybody's drawing and your awesome scissor drawings.
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's motivation. And if you want to do more than 3, you can, but don't feel that there's pressure for it to either be perfect or for it to be anything more than just what you're having fun doing this week.
Love it.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Amanda.
And we will see you again next week.
Bye.
Bye for now.